It's been a long time coming, but Drake is finally back with a bang. After being at the center of one of the most thrilling, chaotic, yet downright embarrassing rap feuds we've ever seen, it looks like he's finally taking everyone's advice, dropping the drama and getting back to the music. For the first time since that historic loss to Kendrick, Drake has released his highly anticipated project with his signee and fellow Canadian, PartyNextDoor. His diehard fans have to be ecstatic right now, celebrating their fave's massive comeback, and honestly, they deserve this moment. After all the questionable decisions, weird antics, and non-stop clowning they've endured over the past few months, they were in dire need of a W. But is this really a W? Well, I guess we're gonna have to see. But let's be real, there is no denying this project with PartyNextDoor was make or break for Drake. If he failed to deliver at least 2 major hits from the whole track list, it would be a huge blow to his reputation as a serial hitmaker. Say what you want about his recent albums, but they've always had a few tracks that stuck around for years. Drake knows that's the bare minimum he has to achieve, but here's where things get interesting. Remember Kendrick's bar where he rapped, "I like Drake with the melody, I don't like Drake when he acts tough"? Well, looks like Drake was listening after all, because on this project, tough guy Drizzy is nowhere to be found. Instead, he went all in on the melodies, doubling down on the smooth, melodic infused sound that made him more famous in the first place. Oh, and he cut off his braids too. Coincidence? Maybe. And that's not the only advice he took from Kendrick. If you listen closely to Not Like Us, Kendrick called him out for abandoning his home city's music scene, chasing fame, power, and status, but never looking back once he got there because he got too greedy. Well, guess who just dropped an entire album centered around his hometown and his roots? Yeah, Drizzy Drake. It's clear this feud taught him a few lessons, and after the absolute beatdown he suffered, it would be crazy if it didn't. But here's the thing, instead of proving Kendrick wrong, these moves only make his disses hit harder. It serves as a reminder of why Kung Fu Kenny is the GOAT. But the real controversy surrounding this album since its release isn't his incorporation of Kendrick's advice. No, the real issue? People are accusing Drake of copying other artists' creative processes and vision to craft his own. Aside from his most loyal fans, who would eat up anything he puts out at this point, a lot of listeners feel like this project lacks originality. Many are claiming Drake stole the entire concept he used for this album. Now, those are some wild allegations, but before we break them down, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more deep dives just like this. Now, let's start with this album's title. We all know Drake has a habit of coming up with long, drawn-out, weird album names, but this might take the cake. Even though the official title is Some Sexy Songs for You, we'll be calling it Triple S throughout this video because, let's be honest, nobody has time to say that whole thing, and if you're wondering why, it's because it's weird. Despite Triple S racking up record-breaking numbers since its release, which isn't shocking, Drake is the numbers guy after all, many people aren't impressed with the quality of the project, and to be fair, they've got a point. When you consider everything Drake has been through in the last year, from the start of the feud to all the drama in between, right down to that messy lawsuit, you'd expect him to deliver something with more depth, emotion, and perspective. Instead, we got this. You could argue that this is one of Drake's most forgettable albums ever. From the overall vibe and subject matter, it feels like a rerun of For All the Dogs, another mid-tier Drake album where he came off like a spoiled rich kid with too much time on his hands. But here's the thing, this is the most pivotal moment in Drake's career. Everything he does from here on out matters more than ever for his legacy and most importantly, for his future in the genre. If history has taught us anything about rap beef casualties, it's that their biggest mistake was failing to evolve once the dust settled. And right now, Drake looks like he's making that same mistake. Instead of leveling up, he played it way too safe with this PartyNextDoor collab. Drake went from being the cocky, confident rapper, challenging Kendrick to drop more tracks, to the guy rapping, "F a rap beef, I'm trying to get lit." Bruh, you don't need to try to get lit, you're already lit up by your biggest op. What you need to do is bounce back with something stronger. At this point, someone needs to tell Drake to switch it up. The same old formula, it's getting stale. And now it's painfully clear why he needed a supporting cast on this album. It's official. Drake is in a creative drought. The tap is officially dry. You don't come out of a rap beef worse than before, but somehow Drake did. Now, to be fair, we could argue this falloff didn't just start today. Over the years, his standards have dropped massively. Sure, he's still putting up crazy streaming numbers, but quality-wise, he's more missed than hit. And deep down, even Drake himself knows he's done better, and if he doesn't, well, good luck to him. Right now, the hottest take on social media is that this 21-track joint album is just too tedious to sit through from start to finish, and honestly, they're not wrong. It's easy to see why people are struggling to connect with the project. Despite being a collab album, it lacks variety. The same beats, same flows, same predictable vibe. There's no risks, no evolution, no boundary pushing, and the subject matter? Mid to say the least. There's no doubt that Triple S will rack up huge streaming numbers in the first few weeks. Drake is the numbers guy after all. But long term, it's got forgettable written all over it because there are two kinds of albums. Ones that have depth, meaning, and stories fans connect with, and ones that are just fun to vibe to. This project, it doesn't fit into either category, at least not fully. It's literally in no man's land. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, it's hard to shake the feeling that Drake didn't give this project his all. Fans expected something new, or at the very least, a return to the old Drake who could blend bangers with deep, more introspective tracks. Instead, we got this. This isn't evolved Drake. This isn't hungry Drake. This is meh Drake. And the worst part, this album does nothing but validate everything Kendrick said on Not Like Us. Honestly, there's no way Drake actually released this album under the hip-hop genre. It's gotta be R&B or something else, and if it's not, then he's pretty much telling us he doesn't give a flying about the culture. Not that he really ever did anyway. Now let's talk about the claims that this album's entire concept wasn't even Drake's original idea. Turns out there's some truth to those allegations, and we're about to break it down, starting with the album artwork. Now, at first glance, the cover seems simple, a pair of rabbits in the background with two high-rise buildings in the foreground. But where did this idea come from? Well, a relatively unknown rapper recently took to social media claiming that Drake stole the front cover concept from his own project without giving credit. The big question is, was this guy actually telling the truth, or is he just clout chasing? Well, the answer isn't really so black and white either. On one hand, the resemblance is undeniable. His project had a strikingly similar cover. At first glance, you'd be convinced beyond reasonable doubt it was copied. But on the other hand, those two buildings, officially called the Marilyn Monroe Towers, are reportedly linked to PartyNextDoor's hometown, making their inclusion somewhat personal. So while the rapper might have a point, it doesn't necessarily confirm that Drake copied his design. But here's where things get a little harder to defend. Even if we can give Drake a pass on the front cover, the back cover and the overall branding of the album, well, that's a different story. The whole rabbit in a hole imagery used to promote Triple S didn't just appear out of thin air. It was originally a signature theme of Freddie Gibbs. In fact, Gibbs released an album in 2022 titled Sold So Separately, Triple S, and his entire marketing campaign revolved around the same rabbit motif. From the visuals to the branding, it's almost as if Drake saw it and thought, yep, I'll take that and make it mine. In case you didn't know who Freddie Gibbs is, he is a well-revered MC in the hip-hop space, and he's been around for a minute. Of course, diehard Drake fans rush to his defense, arguing that creativity is free and concepts get recycled all the time, so there's nothing new about it. But here's the thing, there's a difference between inspiration and straight up lifting someone else's work without acknowledgement. If you're gonna borrow, at least give credit where it's due, and the worst part, Drake knew exactly who Freddie Gibbs was because he was supposed to be featured on that very same Triple S album. Yeah! According to reports, Gibbs had sent Drake a song for the project, but Drake declined, allegedly because it was produced by Pharrell. And why would that be a problem? Well, because at the time, Drake was beefing with Pusha T, and in classic petty fashion, extended that to anyone associated with him, including Pharrell. Now that's pretty wild, right? Well, that's Drake for you. So let's put the pieces together. Drake had direct knowledge of Triple S. He was supposed to be on the album, bailed for personal reasons, and then later used the same branding style for his own project. Yeah, that's not just a coincidence. There's no way it could be. And if you still want to give him the benefit of the doubt, just know that this isn't the first time Drake has pulled something like this. He has a quiet history of borrowing styles from lesser-known artists, ones who don't have the industry weight to push back. He did it on For All the Dogs, he did it on Scary Hours 3, he took flows and cadences that MCs like Westside Gunn, Benny the Butcher, and Conway popularized and repackaged them without proper credit. There's a fine line between paying homage and just taking, and at this point, it's clear which side of that line Drake is on. You can see why Kendrick's point about him disrespecting the culture is very valid. The dude just takes it without second thought, and that's pretty wild to me. A year ago, no one would have cared if Drake borrowed ideas from other artists. But after everything that's gone down, people are watching his every move, ready to call out anything that feels unoriginal. Kendrick touched on this exact issue in Not Like Us, calling out artists who steal creative ideas and pass them off as their own. Looking back, it's starting to feel like that message was aimed directly at Drake. It probably was, honestly. The whole track was a diss to him after all. This album was supposed to be a fresh start, a way for Drake to turn the page after all the drama. But with everything surrounding it, it's clear this isn't a new beginning, it's the same old Drake, still deep in the drama, still feeding off controversy. You could say it's second nature to him now. Meanwhile, Kendrick is out here thriving, performing on the biggest stages, making history, and even winning 5 Grammys off a diss track that dismantled his biggest rival. Drake, on the other hand, he's busy recycling ideas, losing creative steam, and still falling short. The gap between them has never been wider, and at this rate, Drake might never close it. His only lifeline is his streaming numbers, but even those can't hide the fact that this album feels like a step backward. 2 tracks in, and it's very obvious that very little has changed. The sound, the style, the creativity, it's all stagnant. Drake, once known for pushing boundaries, now seems hesitant to evolve and take that next big step. And what's worse, even his usual level of quality, something he managed to maintain before the feud, has taken a hit. While artists like The Weeknd, Bad Bunny, and Kendrick keep reaching new heights and setting new standards of what it means to be a mega artist, Drake risks being left behind if he doesn't bring something fresh to the table. His form has dipped so badly, and he needs to figure out a way out of this creative rut, real quick. At the end of the day, Triple S might draw a lot of interest at first. People are naturally curious to hear what post-feud Drake has for them. But if we're being honest, the project lacks the substance to give it real longevity. The days of Drake being the undisputed leader are over. The game has changed. Fans want more, and the best artists are elevating the culture, not coasting on old formulas. If Drake keeps dropping albums that put people to sleep, he might as well hand out pillows with them. Well, maybe that's the whole point of the album, a natural sleeping pill. And if Freddie Gibbs decides to call him out over the whole allegations of concept theft, it's going to be a whole lot of bad PR, something Drake desperately doesn't need right now. One thing's for sure, this album won't come close to GNX in terms of impact and quality. Every single track on Triple S is just incomparable on every metric possible. The stark difference in creative genius between the pair has never been more clear. Drake needs to saddle up. So back to you, hip-hop fans. What's your take? Are you feeling this new album from Drake and PND, or is it as sleepy as people say? Drop your thoughts in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe for more intriguing hip-hop updates. Trust me, there's always more drama on the way, so you're going to want to stay tuned. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.